All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, our first time business is to elect a chairperson for the meeting. So Diane, I think we will allow you to go ahead and pick somebody.
Well, so now I'll nominate Greg Frenchman.
First, second.
Somebody's got
I'll second that.
All right, so I got been properly moved and seconded that
We're on it.
Greg is the chairperson. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All
Aye.
opposed. All right, well then, motion passes. I will be the chairperson happily. All right, next item of business then is the budget hearing and approval of proposed preliminary tax levy for 2024-2025. Chris, I will give it to you.
All right, we've got a smaller crowd here, so I will try to keep things pretty streamlined as best I can. So, all right, I'll start out and all our people that are listening here too. When we look at our budget, just some key points to make here. The way the process works. So this is our preliminary budget. So by statute, we have to have our preliminary budget approved at a certain point here in the summer. We then, in Clear Lake, we have this annual meeting in late August. That's when we choose to do it. We share the preliminary budget here. So just remember that all information proposed here is the best estimate given the data and the information that we currently have. So it will change. So there will be things that change from this because we don't know yet exactly what our enrollment will be on third Friday of September. We don't know what our open enrollment will be in and out. That won't be known until after school starts. We won't get our final state equalization aids, the final calculation for that, until mid-October. And then the final municipal property equalization values in late September. So all of those things will still be determined. So this was our best guess given our best estimate given the information we have right now. So we make conservative estimates, meaning by that we tend to overestimate expenses and underestimate our revenues wherever we can, so that we paint a more difficult budget picture now, and hopefully then typically it actually is a little bit rosier by the time we get to late October. And then we'll come back in late October and we will approve our official budget once we have all the data by the deadline. But the budget that is forecasted is a balanced budget for 2024-25. So some big key points about our budget in Clear Lake. We had our referendum that was passed in April 2022 that gave us, at the time, an additional $800,000 per year, expanding our revenue limit. There was no money borrowing or anything like that. It just was our public giving us permission to increase our revenue limit and our spending per student. The purpose was for staff compensation to get it to a more competitive level, and I think we've made some major strides with that the last 2 years. We'd been a low spending district going back to the 1990s. This put our funding level at a more equitable level for the long term. And we were able to do that by keeping our levy and our levy flat and our mill rate low or decreasing. So we actually had no increase to our tax levy in 2022, 2023, and very minimal last year in 23-24. So other big things to know about Clear Lake's budget, important factors that go into it. So number one, we are a high aided, lower property value district compared to other districts around the state. So we get about 2/3 to 70% of our revenue comes from the state, and the rest of it is, the other part is raised with our local property taxes, our tax levy. Another factor that's important right now for Clear Lake to understand is we have declining enrollment. Our enrollment is what determines our total revenue limit, and with our declining enrollment, we have declining state aid correspondingly here a little bit. So we also have some other factors to consider. Is our open enrollment we have more students open enrolling out than in currently by about 20 some students. So that is also a budget impact for us. And also the declining enrollment, just the fewer students in school, that's a statewide trend. Across all of Wisconsin, there's about 20,000 fewer kids enrolled in schools, public schools, than there was a few years ago. So Declining enrollment is a trend all over. It's not just Clear Lake, but it is definitely an issue for us. Another big factor with our budgets has been the federal COVID relief funds, or the ESSER funds. So the last 2 years we've been spending down to the tune of about $340,000 each year in ESSER money. That is now done. So going forward, we will no longer have that. So it's been a little bit between the referendum and the COVID funds, ESSER funds. It's been a little bit of a, you might say, more of a spending spree the last couple of years. We've had a looser budget and been able to take advantage to do some things to improve our district. So it'll be back to a little bit more realistic and a tighter budget going forward, starting here in 24-25. Other factors to understand about our budget. Every year we transfer a large amount of money from Fund 10, our general fund, into Fund 27, our special ed fund. And that's to the tune of about $700,000 this past year. So that's a big part of what drives our budget in Clear Lake. And that is also, again, common across the state of Wisconsin. This coming year, 24-25, we also have a transfer budgeted for from Fund 10 into Fund 50, our food service account, to make sure that that fund balances. Food costs are way up. Costs for employment are up, and revenues for food service went down last year because of the COVID relief funds, which were artificially high reimbursement rates per meal from the federal government. Those went down last year as well. So that's a factor that we're looking at too. The other factor in Clear Lake is overall we've had rising property values and regional growth. The past few years we've had pretty amazingly high property value growth. This year is tempered a little bit. We still have growth, but it's more normal and not as big as it's been the last 2 years. We'll get to that in the packet. What did we do with the referendum and the ESSER dollars the last 2 years? We did what we said we would do back in 2022, which was increase staff compensation. So in 2023-24, there was a 5% increase in salaries for teachers, an 8% increase for support staff. And then for 24-25, this spring we did a 4% increase for both, and that's just salary for teachers and support staff, along with an additional higher growth rate for paraprofessionals to bring them more in a market, bring more even with the market around us. So other things we've done with that referendum money, ESSER money, we also took the opportunity to update our summer school compensation, substitutes compensation, our co-curricular pay schedules. All that was done last year. We invested a lot in professional development. We purchased a lot of additional support from CISA 11. We sent a lot of people to the Professional Learning Communities Conference in Minneapolis the last few years. We invested in a lot of curriculum, textbooks, and supporting technologies for those textbooks. We bought technology. We bought, touch boards, smart boards around all the classrooms, some student devices, some teacher staff devices. We purchased a bus each of the years in 2021-22, in 22-23, and then here in 23-24, we actually bought two school buses. So we got ourselves caught up, so to speak, with our inventory and in a good place with our equipment in our bus garage. And then we just know that costs in general have gone up for things like utilities and food and insurance costs have all increased quite a bit the last few years. Maintenance costs are always ongoing, HVAC stuff, but we've still had the last 2 years, or last 3 years, additional surplus that we've been able to add money into Fund 46 at the end of the year, which is our facilities fund. And again, the ESSER funds played a part in that because ESSER funds were used to pay for things like curriculum and technology. That meant we weren't spending our regular budget on that. That meant we had more surplus at the end of the year. So anyway, that's an overview. If you guys look at the packet, if you actually take the packet out and go through it, get to page 7 is kind of the intro, the preliminary, the summary of the preliminary budget. So you can see that we are budgeting a total local property tax levy of $2,946,602. Right below that, you'll see the projected mill rate for 2024-25 at 6.82, which goes down even lower from last year. Was a dramatic drop down to 6.86. It's projected. This was done in early August for the board meeting on August 12th, I think it was, or something like that. So 6.82 is what we were projecting at that time. I'll kind of come back to that later because we got more information since then. It's probably going to be a little bit higher than that, slightly. And you can see that the third thing there, Fund 10 revenues, the point of that is to understand, again, we are mainly funded by the state. 70% of our budget comes from state funding. So, any questions on any of that? Okay, if you turn to page 8 through 13, this is the outline of the actual budget. So, Fund 10 is our general fund. That's the big one. Okay. $8.8 million go into that budget. That's the majority of our budget right there. General fund is Fund 10. And it's a balanced budget in Fund 10 for this year. I also think, and I want to compliment Eve Mansky is here tonight, our new bookkeeper. Compliment her for her assistance and all the work that she helped with preparing, and really I think getting a tight budget that's feels very accurate going into the year. So Fund 10 is our general budget. Fund 21, special projects, that's our, locally here, that is our activity accounts. So again, that is money in, money out. That's not, the district doesn't put money into that. That is paid for by the users that use the activity accounts. Special Education Fund is Fund 27. You'll also see a note there that there's no fund balance to start out. You're not allowed to carry fund balance in Special Ed Fund, but you'll also notice that we had to budget in a transfer again of $780,000 this coming year that will probably transfer in at the end of the year in June to balance that fund out because of the rising costs of special education costs. But Fund 27 is balanced. Funds 38 and 39 are our debt service funds. So 38 is our non-referendum debt service, and Fund 39 is referendum debt service. Those go back to 2013 when those were both when the Fund 39 debt was passed. That is not necessarily a balanced budget. That is, again, dictated simply the money that we levy every year. We follow our debt schedule and we levy the exact amount of money that we have to pay off separately, and then we pay it back out. So there's a small fund balance that sits in there, but that's, again, money in, money out to pay the debt service. Fund 46 is the next one I mentioned. That's our facilities, our capital projects fund. So that would be things like, the new roof, the track last year, upcoming this year, getting ahead here, the high school will be getting the fire alarm system redone. So those are examples of things that can be done there and have been done. Fund 50 I mentioned before is our food service fund. And that is, again, the significant thing there is that we have a projected transfer from Fund 10 into that at the end of the year to make it balance out. So, and that's something that have been already working on, how ways we can try to balance that back out, again, with the rising expenses that are associated with it. Fund 60 is our local scholarship fund. Again, no district funds are a part of that. That is the money that's collected through donations and earned through interest and then paid out in scholarships to students. That is a fund that we hold. And then lastly, Fund 80 is our community service fund. And we have a pretty large balance in there, and we specifically have it budgeted as a deficit in there to bring that fund balance down a little bit. We don't need to carry all that money in there. And that is that fund specifically pays for things like supports things like our Junior Warriors program, daycare program. So you get down to the end of page 13, and this is your total expenditures for all the funds put together. That's a little bit deceiving because really Fund 10, Fund 27 are the main, and Fund 50 are the main school funds that use our school dollars and our local taxpayer dollars and our state dollars. The other ones are kind of are what they are. They're kind of set and established. There's not much strategy that goes well, I shouldn't say that, but there's money in and money out of the other ones. So below that, if you turn to page 14, is the proposed property tax levy. So how do we get to that total property tax levy of $2,946,601? So this breaks out where all that local property tax will be funneled into. So the majority of it, $1.925 million, goes into our general fund, Fund 10. And then the next two lines on there, you see Fund 39 and Fund 38. If you remember, again, those are our debt service funds. So what we do, again, is we levy just the amount that we need, that we project that we need to pay off our debt for that year on our debt schedule that we have with our bonds. So you can see levying $489,908 for Fund 39, $481,000 and change for Fund 38. And then Community Service Fund, you'll notice the levy in there is $50,000 is the local levy that we're doing. That has not increased in probably 20 years, and we're increasing it slightly this year because, if you recall, we are offering junior kindergarten, junior warriors wraparound care just for the 4K students at no cost. So this doesn't pay for all of that, but we're kind of stepping it up a little bit this year and a little bit next year, so that would ultimately pay for that program. With the intent, again, of offering that program for that wraparound care, with the intent to hopefully attract more young families to want to enroll their students here versus another place that might have free all-day care. So the mill rate, again, is listed down below, projected. So I had pulled in some data. Just, I talked earlier about some of the things that drive our budget in Clear Lake. One of the things I mentioned was our student membership count. So I just put in some data there showing the last 10 years or so our student membership count, and some graphs from the DPI that show our membership, our aid membership. Those numbers there don't necessarily mean actual bodies and seats. That's the formula that takes bodies and seats, adds in the open enrolled kids who are open enrolled out, subtracts out the kids who are open enrolled in, goes into the whole formula, and that's what our equalization aid count is. So, but you can see, the reduction that's going on there. And you can see too on the graph on the right, the general aid, how it tails off a little bit this year. Our general aid goes down because that steady declining enrollment is kind of catching up with us a little bit here, even with the referendum dollars. On page, well, first of all, let me start. Does anyone have questions on all this stuff on like page 14 or anything in the major budget there? Okay, hearing none, we'll move ahead here. So page 15, again, just some data, Fund 10 revenue by source, and down below, just kind of my own curiosity and just to share, I just looked at some factors over the last 4 years just to see the trends. You see our state equalization aid, you can see it trending down a little bit this year, so we're having less money from the state. And so, because we have an uptick in our local levy this year. And so I want to, people to understand that it's because we're getting less money from the state. Federal revenue, another thing to note there is in the last 3 years, you see those very, very large numbers of federal revenue. That's ESSER money, right? So then you notice this year, 2024-25, it drops back down to $198,000 of federal revenue. So again, just kind of historical on the levies there for you to see, and then at the bottom, kind of some of the things that are impacting that ESSER spending for 21 to 24. One notable thing again too, so in the bottom 2022-23, our total all-fund local levy, something that I think Clear Lake can be proud of is we passed that referendum in the spring of 22, and then later that summer in 22-23 budget, we actually reduced the overall tax levy by $5,000. Even though we passed the referendum, the local levy did not go up. So that was some good long-term planning that was done there. So that's notable. But you can then see that as we go, and last year was a pretty minimal increase, and you can see now this year there is a bigger increase, and that's necessary to help us balance things. On page 16, the board has heard this at their last meeting, but just some data on fund balance. So you'll notice that our year-end balance for the last 3 years we've been able to add money into it and increase our fund balance, the actual number. And you'll notice if you go down to the line that says expenses, you'll notice high expenses in 22-23 and 23-24, right? And that is a couple of things. One is the referendum jumped our expenses and our revenues way up. Also the ESSER money too jumped things way up. So, and now you'll notice in 24-25 our expenses actually drop back down, $300,000 because that's that ESSER money going away. That won't be in our mixing in our budget anymore. So the point to be there is that next year, even if we add nothing more to our fund balance as a percent of our expenses will jump back up just because we're spending less money. The next page, 17, is our ESSER funds and just the history of that, going back to 2020. And 23-24 information, it is unaudited. We're actually literally still spending, like Eve was working on that today, still spending the last dollars by September 30th has to be all spent down. We have it all spent. And I think, what I'd like to do later in the fall and like in October or so is do a full accounting of all the cool things we did with our ESSER money, because we did some pretty cool things with it the last couple of years, and some things that I think will make a long-term impact on our district. But we spent the whole $754,000 in ESSER 3 funds over the past 3 years. Any questions on any of those pages? Any things quick? Page 18, we throw the term mill rate around. This is just a nice little graphic from Baird, which reminds us how the mill rate is calculated. So you take the total school levy, which is the $2.9 million and change, you divide it by what is all the property in Clear Lake. If you total up every piece of property in our whole district, that is the equalized property value. You divide that and you multiply it times 1,000, that's how you get your mill rate. So what goes into our total school levy? That stuff we just looked at. Fund 10, Fund 38, Fund 39, Fund 80, community service. All those things go into our total levy that we do. So down below that, there's a little bit of history there again. So our tax levy, does go up a little bit, again, local, because of our state amount going down a bit. But you see that the mill rate is still projected here to decrease. That was because of the projection that we were using for property values in late July and around the 1st of August when we were doing this. And then actually since it happened like August 14th, which is like 2 days after the board meeting where we approved the preliminary budget, which is what this is. Then the Department of Revenue put out their annual estimate. They do a mid-August estimate, and we had factored in or guessed a 10% increase in property values, because the last 2 years has been 15 and 22. In each of those years, we guessed 10. And every year we undershot. So this year we're going back and forth. I was working with our partner from Baird and trying to project and estimate, and so we went with 10% again. And actually, it's a smaller increase than that. It's like a 3.6% increase. So actually, still a $14 million increase in total property values across our whole district. So still, that would be like in years past, that would be considered still a good increase. So what I would estimate is that the mill rate that we have projected will actually be a higher number. I think it'll be a little bit around more like the 7 number, a little bit above 7. And again, that doesn't mean we're going to have more taxes. So people understand that the mill rate going up is just a function of the fact that the property values have gone down a little bit. That's all. So the mill rate come late October might be a little higher than what we have listed in here. So questions? The rest of the information in the packet here is just information about our district. And we've got our strategic plan in there. We might talk about that more later with the principals. District profile. You can see our enrollment on page 21 is our head count that we're estimating first day of school. And again, you can see some rather small classes. Our head count dropped, or will drop, like 20 kids, because when you graduate 40 some kids and you bring in a kindergarten class of 20 some kids, obviously that's the math. So hence some of our efforts to try to keep some of our younger newly enrolling kids in 4K with the wraparound program. So the rest of the information here is our calendar. It's our roster of all of our staff. So that is the quickest summary I can do on the budget, I guess, tonight. So. Any other questions on the budget?
Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve post-tax levy for 24-25.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the tax levy for 24-25. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approved, Chris, thank you. The next item of business is the approval of the 24-25 school board salaries. I will entertain a motion. Just a little history on that. I think we have been getting $2,600 a year to be on the board, right?
It should be in the minutes. Yeah, $2,600 per year with the stipulation that each board member's salary paid when they had participated in at least 2 professional development webinars or workshops.
So we'll entertain a motion to continue that, if you feel so inclined.
I'll make a motion to approve the board salaries. The right wording?
I second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the board salaries as previous. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is our consent agenda, and I'll read through them. We'll do them all in one shot. So, consent agenda A is authorize the operation of a school lunch program. B, authorize the board the provision for student insurance. Authorize reimbursement of school board members for expenses incurred. Authorize the board to transport students. Authorize the prosecution and defense of any school litigation. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to
You need to.
approve. Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the state of the district reports. We'll start with our superintendent's report.
Okay. A lot of people in this room are aware of this information, so again, I'll try. I think the big thing is our strategic plan development the past few years. We had a committee of leaders that was convened by the board. We had a great community event in the spring of 2023. We got a ton of great feedback and input from our community members. The Vision Element Study Team took that information, built a strategic plan, and then for the past year, 23-24, we've worked as an administrative team to take that plan and put it into actionable steps. And we've created balanced scorecards, which will then drive our actions in our buildings to help create that change. So the scorecards have goals on them. They have specific strategies to achieve those goals, and they have metrics to measure the success of those goals. And this is all meant to bring alignment to our district so that we all have common understandings of what it is we're trying to accomplish, so that we can all work together to try to meet those goals and give purpose and give vision to our staff and all of us, and for the board to hold us accountable for progress. Personnel, the principals will introduce their new staff or mention their new staff members. We had 9 new staff hires or openings this year, which is down. Last year we had 11. The year before we had 27 openings, or people changed positions 2 years ago in 2022. I want to make special note of Eve, our new bookkeeper this year, just because she plays such a key role for our business office and our finances and for myself personally. That was a development this year that Eve has successfully onboarded starting back in December. Also last year, a new food service director, Tara Petter, served all of last year. But it was a big step for her to come in and fill, big shoes for someone who's been here a long time. So those are 2 big notable transitions that happened in our district last year. I'm extremely excited about the high quality of the staff we've been able to add over the last few years, and this year our referendum dollars and our increased compensation has made a significant difference. When we have a candidate that we want to offer a position, there's no more conversation about the difference in salary between Clear Lake and somewhere else. That is really a non-factor, and then it goes to things where we can really be successful, which is culture and the positive energy, I think, in our district in a lot of different ways. So it's truly made a difference in retention of staff and attraction of staff, and that's what it was for. So we need to continue to keep mentoring and supporting and investing in our staff. We want to keep them. And then new this year, development 2, based on the board looking at data this summer and giving direction to us. So created a new position of pre-K through 12 assistant principal / athletic director. And Dale Rosine was hired from internal to fill that position, but to provide those types of supports that I just talked about, to support students, but also indirectly that it supports the adults in the building to be more successful by having that type of support from Dale, helping with behavior support and working with students in that way. Also supports the rest of the admin team to be able to do more and do a better job and drive the change forward with our strategic plan. The priority for Dale with behavior support is mainly going to be at the elementary here presently. That could change in the future. And then obviously spending his AD time, athletic director time, at the high school. So quick things on facilities. So the track project was completed last summer with no referendum. We did a comprehensive facility study last fall with Kraus Anderson. We've faced some HVAC fixes at the elementary school and worked through those. I want to compliment Tom Osmond for continuing to push on that. We'll be a big facility thing this year. This fall we'll be updating the high school fire alarm system. It's vintage from 1997. It still works, but we need to update it. And then multiple efforts towards continued cybersecurity. Bo Osmond, our IT leader, has been doing some big things there. You heard about it at the last board meeting. But we have upcoming needs with our facilities. Our high school parking lot will need to be addressed in the near future. Or we have HVAC issues. If you were just in the gym, you might have noticed that. We'd maybe like to have air conditioning in other parts of the district. We've got issues with, upgrades with our needed in our bus garage, storage, things like that. So our custodial staff has been working hard all summer, just like they always do with facilities. Academic stuff, principals have hit on that with some of the things going on there. But I think we're on the cusp and we're starting to see the fruits of some of the labors of our curriculum work and the hard work we've been doing to become a professional learning community the past few years for the academic and the social and emotional needs of kids. Fiscally, we just heard about all that. We've been a bit of a spending spree a little bit with all the ESSER funds and the referendum the last couple of years, and now we've been very fortunate to have surpluses to put away and towards that deferred maintenance and building up assets like buses, things like that. Be back to a little bit more of a reality, normal budget in 2024-25. We were very fortunate again to have no increase for health insurance premiums for the 3rd year in a row, which is unheard of. So we're also riding that positive wave financially. We've had rising property values in our area, although not necessarily quite as much this year, but also, not necessarily increased taxes, but just increased property values. And then we've got a new biennium in Madison. They'll be talking about the new state budget for 25 to 27 That'll be a big deal for Clear Lake, like it always is, because we are dependent on state aid. So we'd be looking for increases in equalization aid, increases in special ed funding, like we talked about before. I got to give a shout out to some of the activities going on in the buildings. Community education with Wendy Scoggins. Look for more classes and activities that she is continuing to add for community ed, and trips to plays and things like that coming up. We've had a revival in our forensics program the last 2 years. We've had some very successful teams, from our girls basketball team going to state last year, wrestlers and track athletes going to state, solo and ensemble students, FFA students, CCLA state competitions, and state officers, and others as well. We started using ETS Performance last year as a partner, and that's been off to an awesome start. Remember that in 2025-26, we'll be moving athletically into the Dunn St. Croix Conference for all sports except for football, which is determined separately. We talked about Mr. Rosine being our new athletic director. We've got all our fall sports underway. And again, we've got a lot of activity in the building tonight with volleyball going down the hallway. We've had new teacher orientation. We've had multiple professional development things. We had Camp Junior High. It was great to see kids in the building today, and teachers in service also today. So it's an exciting time of year. Be great to get kids back in the building, great to get staff back here, all of them, and just really start gearing up for a great new year. So Eve, want to compliment her for, again, her assistance towards me getting through her first audit as well. And also I want to compliment Lori Karnick, who's been coming in as a helper in post-retirement from December through June, mentoring and training and so on. But also, Eve did a lot of work building the budget with me, the first one for her doing that. And again, thank you to all our summer staff, custodians, secretaries, transportation, IT, food service, and also personally thanking Joy Nordby, the other third person in our business office. Wouldn't be able to function without all the work that Joy and Eve and Lori have been doing. So, and I want to thank our admin team, with Mr. Melberg, Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Powers, and now Mr. Rosine added to that. I couldn't be more proud of a group of leaders, their character and their service-minded orientation of what they bring to our district is awesome. I'm very proud of our team, and our department leaders as well, Tom, Osmond Rud, Tara Petter, leading those departments. So we've got a lot of things to be proud of in Clear Lake, and like every year, we're going to have challenges to overcome and face this year, difficulties. That's part of the deal. And then we got just tons of great things happening as well, and tons of progress going on. So I always consider it a privilege for myself to get to do this because of our students. I think we have great students in Clear Lake, great kids. I'm really proud of our community support and our committed staff and our board that is invested in the right things for kids. So Clear Lake's a great place to be. That's my report.
Top that one, Mr. Melberg.
I don't think I can, and I'll try not to repeat anything, but I am going to repeat the first one. Tom's crew has once again done a wonderful job getting this building ready. We are very fortunate with the facility that we have here, and his crew takes a ton of pride in what they do, so we appreciate that very much. Football, volleyball, and cross country are now in full swing, as we can hear the whistles coming from the gym. Once again, our participation level in all of our sports, especially in the fall, is really high, which is is a huge sign of a healthy program. And just a huge thank you to all of our coaches, because we ask a lot of them. They put a ton into these programs, and we have healthy programs because of them, and the people that support them. As there's a lot of people, parents and community members that are very supportive of all of our athletics. We appreciate that very much. New staff, most of them are in Mrs. Anderson's building, but we have 3 that are K-12, so I'll introduce the 3 new K-12 teachers. Molly Skalecki, art teacher, Stephanie Solberg, music, and Danielle Clark, speech and language. So very excited. These are three important positions that we filled. 2 of the one here just recently. So we're excited to be, I believe, fully staffed. And it's always good to be fully staffed before day one. So we started to cut it close this year, but we got there. We've got new math curriculum that the board approved last spring in the hands of our math teachers, and they're ready to ready to start on day one with that new math curriculum, HMH into math, so we're excited about that. Last year, I looked at my notes from last year before this meeting, and I had noted to the board that the admin team had just met with Brad Sarin, and I believe it was our first meeting after the board had adopted the strategic plan. It seems like a lot longer ago that we met, and I started putting together a slide for staff tomorrow on all of the things that we have either put into place last year or are about to put into place this year that are directly tied to Pillar 1 of the strategic plan. So I wanted to share those things that are in place or about to be in place just based off of our students' Pillar 1. Junior high intervention time for math last year, every 7th and 8th grader received an extra 20 minutes a week of math skills. This upcoming year we'll do the same. It'll be 20 minutes and 40 minutes for some students for both math and ELA, so we're going to add ELA to that as well because of the success that we had doing that with math last year. Last fall, we implemented FastBridge for the first time in 7th and 8th grade. We had been using it in special ed. It's been used at the elementary level for quite some time. Realized that we needed that progress monitor here because of what we were doing with the strategic plan to help us identify those lagging skills. If we can identify those lagging skills, we can start to target kids and help them build up those lagging skills. With that same idea in mind, last year we late in the fall purchased a program called CERT. This is the same idea as FastBridge. It helped identify lagging skills for our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. It also helped them better prepare for both the pre-ACT and the ACT. We saw significant gains. We're just getting test results back here in the last few weeks, and we saw some very significant gains from our juniors and our sophomores, as well as our 8th graders last year, and I think it's because of all these things that we put in place due to the plan that the board adopted. On top of that, we started setting goals. This is something we borrowed from the elementary school as well. I don't want to give Mrs. Anderson too much credit, but we started doing class and individual goals for both our ACT, kids taking the ACT, kids taking the pre-ACT and the forward, and I think that helped contribute to a lot of that success as well. And then new this year, put in place because of the strategic plan and our scorecard is we're going to implement safety net procedures to make sure that none of our students slip through the cracks academically. They'll ensure that we're doing everything we can to help students be more successful, to help us identify why individual students are struggling so we can, by face, by name, work with those students to help them along. So all of those things put in place in the last year, and that's just one of the pillars, and there's so many things going on in each of those pillars. So I think we are ready for a great year. This is the first year that we'll have the plan fully implemented, and we are getting all of our arrows kind of aligned and all pulling in one direction, and the work is getting really exciting. It was a lot of work, but now that we're starting to see it be put into place, it's fun, it's exciting. So great time for our kids.
All right. We're excited to kick off the 24-25 school year. Recently, Pat Lilly retired, and so kudos to our custodial staff as well in elementary. Those floors have they just shine. Like, you gotta wear sunglasses. They're looking beautiful. So they're really getting that building spruced up for the kiddos to come in to dirty it up in a couple weeks. So we're ready for them. We are adding some amazing new staff to our team. Mr. Melberg mentioned some of our shared staff, but we also have in the elementary Ms. Shelley Doyle, one of our special ed teachers, Mrs. Erica Dorsey, a 3rd grade teacher, Mr. Scott Pedersen for 5th grade, and then we have some paraprofessionals, Ms. Desiree Wishard in the elementary, Mrs. Lori Frenchu will be joining us as well, and then Ms. Erica Echo for our junior warriors. Some of those names sound familiar because we've had graduates and community members, and we just really are appreciative of the community that we have that has such quality candidates and their commitment to our students. Along with our new staff, we're implementing a new kindergarten through 6th grade reading series. It's called Into Reading, and it focuses on really building those foundational skills at the early ages. It's called structured literacy, so getting back to the phonemic awareness, the phonics, and all of that. With that, we are bringing in a CSEC consultant to really work with our writing from K through 6 to really just understand how kids develop with writing and make that a really robust part of our program. Our 5th and 6th grade adopted a math series that connects with this building. It's called Into Math, and that promotes a lot of mathematical thinking. So we are really excited to see how some of those programs that really have the pieces in place for success can start being used. Our strategic plan is the driving force. That's what was behind choosing even these resources. Is it really matching the plan that we have? Those district scorecards are giving us that direction. That's what we base our decisions on, and on that student data that we collect. Data really does drive our instruction. It's something that we don't just say, it's something that we truly do. This week, as we bring the teachers back in, every grade level will be meeting with each other. Kindergarten first will meet together, first, second will meet together, all the way through, and we just talk about what data we have seen from the spring and how we can just jumpstart right away. We don't waste time. We let them take their backpacks off, and then we get running. So we really want to just really keep that momentum going. So we are just a staff that's really committed to that student success. We have also been doing, if you've heard of RTI, response to intervention, there's always some new, taglines and new acronyms that come out, and now it is EMLSS. I'm not going to put Melberg on the spot, but you might know it.
Multi-level systems of support.
Got it. So equitable multi-level systems of support. So it really is an umbrella that really focuses in not only on academics, but also behavior systems. We're really excited to have Mr. Rosine on board to help with that. We've got a really skilled teacher team that is presenting to the elementary staff tomorrow regarding this. So we just have some wonderful things in place, again, all related back to that strategic plan and the goals that we have for our district. I do want to thank the administrative team, because going into my 3rd year, I'm feeling much more calm as we've kind of seen this go, but we just have so much in place this year that even we didn't have last year, so it just is a good place to be. I want to thank the school board for your commitment to student success, and the decisions that I hear being made are always it's the students that are at the center of that. So that's just really just wonderful that our district is that committed to our students. Our staff, we truly have the best staff. If we look back and think of the teachers that left to find greener grass and came back, that just speaks volumes. When we interview, we can truly say the culture and climate we have in our building, we don't make it up. Like it truly is there. Just join us and you'll see and feel what that is like. We've had substitutes say, we want to sub in Clear Lake. It just has that feeling of just welcoming and community. So something that we can really be proud of, and it starts with the school board, heads to administration, staff, and the kids can feel that as well. I believe that is everything, and one more high five, because we got a big day tomorrow. Today was a good start to our in-service, and tomorrow we really dig in with some of our professional development.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. If I could at this time, I'd like to interject and build on some of the things that the three of you have mentioned in your reports. At no time of being on the board have I ever seen so many things, positive things happening, it seems. And we've sat on the board a number of years and seen positive things happen, and I know that we've mentioned strategic plan 100 times in this meeting so far. To see all of these different things align with the pillars that we came up with from the strategic plan, and now seeing some of the fruits come with some of the testing and the success our students are having in the classroom, the success that our students are having out in the competition in sports, the the success that they're having in a lot of our groups, FFA and the other ones. It's just amazing to me to sit here and be a part of this. First, the community. Well, first, hats off to Chris for initializing and pushing for the strategic plan. I never dreamt that it would have the effect that it's having on our district right now. So hats off to you, Chris, for getting that going, and then the community. While we were going through that event, I think that Brad had mentioned he's never seen such involvement from a number standpoint, which speaks volumes to the people who are concerned about their children in the community, the district. So the energy that was gleaned and drummed up and magnified at that, the time that a lot of the community members put in. Nettie, you put a ton of time in that. Thank you for all the time. And there's a number of other key ones that put a ton of time into that. Being on the board, we were privileged enough to see some of the work that the administrative team had to work at, and the hours and hours of you guys, the exercises that it took you guys to come up with your measurements and scorecards. My golly, that's like. That was an incredible feat, and I know you guys are on the tail end of that now and getting to see some of the fruits. That's excellent. I'm happy that you guys got the other end. Thank you guys for going through all that to get us to this point. So the strategic plan is doing a lot for our district, coupled with the referendum that we pushed for that lends into our culture. This is the shortest list of replacements we've ever had, I think, sitting here at the post. Will we replace 6 people or 7? I know sometimes it might feel like we're always hiring people, but we have a lot of employees here, so I'm really excited being on the board. And hats off to all the people that were involved in that thing, and let's just keep our ears to the ground and our eyes up, and let's see some good things happen for our kids coming up here. So anyway, sorry for stealing that little bit of time, but the next item of business then is to authorize the board to set our future annual meeting date. So Chris, if you want to help us with that, how we usually do that?
Yeah, I think this is just the community giving you guys the authority to say probably the first, whenever you wanted to, or the last Monday in August. It's been that way for quite a while.
So we actually don't have to set the date, they're just going to authorize us to set the date.
Yeah, giving you permission to do it.
I'll entertain a motion then to authorize us to set the date.
I can't hear you. Do you want to set an actual date?
No, we want you to authorize
That
us
we
to
can
set the
set
date
it.
later.
I make a motion, right?
Yes, yes.
You guys. I'll second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we set the future annual meeting date. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that motion.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed. Motion passes. We are adjourned.